Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the October Bronx Borough Board meeting. My name is Tom Lucchini. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff. To my left is Persephone Tan, the Director of Operations for the Borough President. I think this is your second meeting, right? Second meeting. We have a couple of items on the agenda, but also an additional item on the agenda that we will start with, and that will be the New York City Police Department talking about the Q-Team program. Okay. So just before we get to the chief, let me just formally open the meeting. Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85 of the New York City Charter, a meeting of the Bronx Borough Board will take place on Monday, October the 20th, 2025, starting at 10 a.m., being held in person here at 851 Grand Concourse, room 405A. On the agenda, as I mentioned, the New York City Police Department, but also the New York State Department of Transportation regarding the Cross Bronx Bridges Project, and the New York City Department of City Planning and Principles of Urban Design. So we have a full agenda today. I'm going to forego and wait until after the chief is finished to do roll call, because I believe there are still folks downstairs. So without any further ado, Chief Gons from the Patrol Borough Bronx, and the presentation on the new Q-Team program.
Yes.
My
name is Chief Gons. I'm the executive in the Patrol Borough Bronx. I believe many of you guys are aware of the NCO program that we previously had. We kind of sort of changed that into what we call now the Q teams. They operate kind of similar, but our focus is on 311s and certain 911 jobs in an effort, one, to reduce crime by addressing certain conditions that we believe will lead to major crimes. For example, when it comes to certain 911 jobs, when it comes to that mentions dice games, and 311 jobs that mention dice games, large crowds, we make an effort now with the new Q team. Our motto is to prioritize those calls, which in the past, if it was a 311, it would kind of take a back seat to the 911 jobs. So what we're doing now is we're bringing those to the forefront and trying to handle them as quick as possible in order to prevent incidents from happening. Obviously, we know large crowds, disorderly groups can lead to shootings, fights, and disorder. So we're trying to get officers there as quick as possible. Although they're not your typical 911 jobs, we're trying to get them there as quick as possible to handle them and prevent major crimes from happening. When it comes to the regular 311 jobs, the Q teams, every precinct now has 2 Q teams. They have one in the morning and they have one in the afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm a little hoarse. I was a little sick this weekend. So their task with handling most 311 jobs, we have 2 officers that kind of operate as the traffic guys for the Q teams to also handle 311 jobs that pertain to cars as well. So like double parkers, blocking, sidewalks, or blocking the entrance to a building or to a house, block driveways. We're trying to get those officers to also, because although it's not a 911 job, if it was me, I want to be treated like a 911 job, because obviously either I'm trying to get out the house and somebody's blocking me in, so we want to get officers there as quick as possible. So they're handling those jobs because we know that it's important to the community, and we know that if you went out of your way to call 311, it's because either you're trying to get somewhere or it's really bothering you. So that's the model for the Q teams. When it comes to the other 311 jobs, not non-traffic related, the rest of the team is tasked with, especially on the weekends, where we get the bulk of the 311 jobs, for noise complaints, crowds, or homeless conditions as well. Well, I'll talk about the homeless conditions at the end. But we're trying to get these Q teams to respond, handle the condition, or note it and refer it, or if we can't address it that day, then we include it into what we call Salesforce, so we can coordinate with other city agencies to make sure that we address it. So we kind of create a case on it, coordinate with other city agencies, and eventually note what we've been doing along the way to finally address it, and finally then we close the case when it's finally addressed. It's very different from what we've done in the past, where officers will respond, they'll say it's not a police matter, and we kind of refer it, but then we didn't know what transpired. We don't know if it was addressed or not, but now we can go back in the system and find out what exactly was done at a specific job that we couldn't handle at the time. When it comes to cleanups and homelessness, we also have the Q team respond to that, but again, we coordinate with other city agencies, homeless outreach, and again, we create a case to make sure we schedule cleanups, services that will be offered, and eventually we close out the case with our findings and what was finally done. Again, it's not the NCO model. The NCO model was geared more towards crime, and this one is kind of like a holistic view of what really concerns the citizens of the Bronx. And again, it's not the Q teams is not just in the Bronx. Again, every precinct has two Q teams, but every precinct in the city also has Q teams. I can't speak for the rest of the boroughs, but I know in here in the Bronx we have for every precinct two Q teams, one for the mornings and one for the evenings. And so, for example, let's say this is the 4-4. So in the 44th precinct, if the team is scheduled for a 10 to 6, but certain conditions are happening that need our attention later tours, and we need more resources, then those teams can switch. They can change their tours to make sure that we have enough personnel to address the conditions on the evening hours. But we wanted to make sure that every 12 hours we have personnel specifically assigned to Q teams to address conditions and respond to 911 jobs and 311 jobs. We've been doing this for almost 2 months. There's still some kinks that need to be fixed, and some issues that we need to address. But so far, the program's been working great. We've been getting a lot of success stories from officers, by addressing these small conditions. The other thing is that we know who the chronic callers are. Usually, obviously, when they leave their numbers, we try to contact them again, build a relationship with the callers, because if they are chronic, it's because something's really bothering. So we want to make sure that we address the conditions so we can prevent them from calling again, not because they're a nuisance to us, but because the problem is actually fixed. So again, it's a holistic approach of crime fighting, and not just crime, but also non-crime conditions that affect the community that we can help with. I will take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Chief. Just one question. Does each precinct have this similar amount of officers in the morning and the afternoon and the evening tour?
So obviously, if you look at when you look at each precinct, some precincts produce more 311s and 911 jobs than others, and they require more personnel. In other precincts, because of the amount of the 911 jobs and the 311 jobs, they don't require as much. But every precinct has at least 4 to 5 Q team members per tour.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the members of the board? I know that you've made a number of presentations to each of the boards and to the precinct councils and to the council members directly, so they probably have a lot of this information already, but we did want to be sure that you had the opportunity to share, the program with all of us, as a whole. and offer the opportunity for anyone to ask any questions here. Is there a way so that, at least for the Borough President's office, that we can get a list from you of each precinct's Q team's contacts so that when Persephone needs to reach out based on 311 complaints, that complaints that we get here in our office, through our webmail and through that we can make those contacts as well?
Yes, I can take your information, your email, and your phone number, and I'll make sure to get that to you. But if you are, where you live, again, just like the NCO model, if you live in a conference of the 4-4, which is where we are now, you can speak to your community affairs. You want to know your sergeant. So every team also has a supervisor. You want to get that person's number because, again, it might not be an issue that may need addressing right now, but because we can't do it ourselves because of laws or city coordinates that are in place, but we can coordinate with other agencies to make sure that we address it. So wherever precinct you live in, you want to make sure that you get the sergeant's number for the Q teams. When you go to your community council meetings, that's probably the best time to get it. And the sergeants will usually be there, and if not, obviously the commanding officer will give you that information.
Question?
I just have a general question. I'm representing Community Board 8, and often the 50th precinct often tells us, well, we have a lower threshold in terms of crime, so therefore we don't need the same resources as the other areas in the Bronx, which, I agree to a certain extent, but we still have issues of community members having their wheels being stolen off of cars, graffiti, people loitering on the city bikes, noises coming out of different parks that are just as upsetting to people and their quality of life being impacted. And it may not be as high as other areas in the Bronx, but it's still a concern. And we believe that our staffing is impacted, so they're not able to follow through on some of the 311 calls in terms of noise complaints, stolen tires, and et cetera, and et cetera. And we're concerned that we want to know, what's the threshold in terms of complaints with staffing, if there is any?
Well, he's not totally wrong. That's where the borough comes into play. So at the borough level, we do provide them, the 5-0 precinct, with, extra resources when it comes from, for example, like overtime tours, maybe operations where we use multiple offices and multiple precincts to address certain conditions there. I agree with you. The stolen tires and rims obviously has always historically been an issue in the 5-0 precinct and the 45th precinct. One of the main reasons for that is because when you look at the neighborhood, it's a lot of houses. It gets quiet real early in the evening, so they become more of a target for these individuals because the probability of them getting caught it diminishes tremendously. From, for example, they're not going to do a rims and tire stealing at Fordham because Fordham is usually very, very populated, so they don't. Their chances of getting caught there or somebody calling 911 is very high. So that's why they go to these neighborhoods that are predominantly very nice neighborhoods and very quiet. But again, we do address the personnel by providing them in specific days or certain weekends if they have events, or if crime in a certain area is spiking, we do provide them with extra resources. But again, the commanding officer is not wrong in that usually they require less personnel because of the amount of 911 calls that they receive in 311s. But it's something that we monitor on a regular basis, and when we need to enhance it, we do enhance it. And I would say for the last year, every time we get a new class, they've been getting new officers there. One of the issues obviously is that sometimes officers, usually officers in the 5-0 precinct, they like they enjoy working there, and they've been there for a long time. So we have to kind of counter the retirements with the new officers. So, but we do try to get new officers as often as we can to the 5-0 precinct. It's just that we have to prioritize based on crime, and obviously some other precincts take a priority.
Thank you, Chief. Ken, would you take the microphone, please?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Could you please step through, if you're able, what are the instructions given to 311, and how would a call that came in as a 911 call be routed to 311?
So a 911 call normally does not get routed as a 311. Maybe the opposite is probably more true. A 311, that's something that starts off as a 311, then could escalate to a 911, which is why we try to address it as a 311. For example, disorderly, let's say, large crowd, but there's nothing really criminal about it. So we try to get an officer there because before it becomes a 911 job. For example, like a fight. So if we get to the 311 job, well, because it's just somebody's not comfortable with this amount of people in front of the building, then we get there and we address it. Do you guys live here? And if not, what are you guys doing here? But if we don't address it, then you get another 311 job, but then hopefully it doesn't turn into a fight, which then will be a 911 job when we actually get a physical fight, which is an assault. And then it'll become a 911 job. But usually the opposite is not, it's not the norm, where 911 then becomes a 311.
Thank you.
Because the 911 is a priority all the time, which is why we always try to get there as soon as possible, which is why we're trying to do these specific 311's responses to triggers that could lead to 911 jobs.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Before you go, Chief, would you just introduce the officers that are in the back this way there at least? Brian, you want to start just?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Director Brian Adams. I work in the Chief of Patrol's office. I oversee the Community Ambassador Program. Community Ambassador is a unit that was formed after the George Floyd murder.
Just take the microphone by saying please.
Sorry. I'm Brian Adams. I oversee the Community Ambassador Program. It is a program that was created after the George Floyd murder, just so the NYPD can now have more civilian touch to the community as opposed to uniform. So I have 8 civilians and 2 detectives that work for me. And one of my ambassadors, Rich Guevara, is here. He covers Manhattan North as well as part of the Bronx. And Detective Belk is my executive assistant.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it. Anything else for the Chief? If not, thank you, Chief, for being here. Brian, thank you for connecting us, and if anything, we'll be back in touch with you. Thank you very much, Chief.
I don't have a card.
I just gave my card to the Chief. Okay.
So we'll email you.
And I'll get it to Persephone. Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
You too. The next item will be the New York State Department of Transportation. Mary Seduti.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, yes, let me do roll call while they get set up. Thank you. I'll do roll call quickly. Community Board 1, Clarissa. Oh, actually, it is not Clarissa any longer. It's, but I don't see Board 1. Community Board 2. Community Board 3.
Yes.
Here?
Here.
Ada, you're here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Community Board 4. Leonardo as well. Community Board 5.
Ken Brown, District Manager.
Community Board 6.
Upper North District Manager.
Community Board 7. Community Board 8.
Present.
Just your name, just for the record.
Debbie Allen, I'm representing Julia Reyes.
Thank you. Community Board 9. Community Board 10. Community Board 11.
Cynthia Rodriguez, Chair of Community Board 11.
Community Board 12. Just for everyone's information, Beatrice from Community Board 12 has left the board. So the acting chair is Clinton Mike. Council members, Councilmember Diana Ayala, Councilmember Eric Dinowitz,
Stephanie Rodriguez on behalf of Councilmember Dinowitz.
and who are you representing? Also, Council, okay. Councilmember Riley,
Andy Twist is representing Councilmember Riley.
Councilmember Marmorato,
Morning, Mark Nice, representing Councilwoman Mamrado.
Councilmember Sanchez, Councilmember Feliz, Councilmember Stevens, Councilmember Salamanca, Councilmember Majority Leader Farias. Okay. Okay. Do you want to start or? Oh, there you are.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Sudito with State Department of Transportation. Before I start, I just want to thank everyone for allowing us on your agenda today to provide update to our project. We did present it before back in February. Now we have some updates. As I guess majority would know, some options had been dismissed, but I'll go through everything on the presentation. Some slides you already seen before, so I'll go a little bit faster in the interest of time. But obviously location, it's between Boston Road and Rosedale Avenue with the 5 bridges included in this project. I'll just go through them a little bit. So bridge 1, 2, and 3, they all carry the main line, Cross Bronx Expressway, and they cross over West Farms Road, Sheridan Boulevard, the MTA bus depot, the river, of course, concrete plant, and also Bronx Borough Parkway. Structure number 2, it's the viaduct section of the Cross Bronx Expressway. Structure number 4, it's overpass, Boston Road over Cross Bronx Expressway. And structure number 5 carries the exit ramp from eastbound Cross Bronx Expressway to southbound Sheridan Boulevard. Project purpose stays the same, to address geometric and structural deficiencies of these 5 bridges and to improve multimodal connectivity within the project limits. We also look to improve the vehicular connection between southbound Bronx Borough Parkway and westbound Cross Bronx Expressway, and to improve the multimodal accessibility within the project limits. Here are some photos that you've seen before. Condition of the bridges with deep spalls and corroded structure with the section lows. One thing I would like to mention that we do inspect regularly the bridges and we perform interim repairs, but these structures, they got to the point where they really need to be addressed and in a more permanent fashion. So here's a list with a public outreach that has been taking place as part of the project. I'm not going to go through everything. We did have 3 walkthroughs where a large number of organizations and community boards also participated. We had meetings with community boards 3, 6, and 9. We did present it back in February, the project. The same meeting. We had several meetings with Bronx River Alliance to discuss the stormwater management, to discuss the EA process, and to discuss the schedule and project in general. We also met with Bronx River Houses board meeting back in May of this year. We also had 3 public project update meetings. Those were the open house type of the meetings back in June, where we discussed the project and the options that were part of the project at the time with the community, and we really were looking for the input from the community, which we did receive, and that helped us shape the project and bring the project where is it at this time. We also participated at a couple of events with a table and information about the project, and we try to, bring awareness about the project within the community. So everyone knows this project, it advances an environmental assessment, and here it's a list which I assume you've seen before with all the environmental, social, and economic topics that are being analyzed as part of the project, just to name few: noise, air, traffic, stormwater management. I'm not going to go through all of them, but all these are being evaluated as part of the project. In terms of the environmental review process, everything starts with the environmental assessment initiation, which took place in September last year. And once that takes place, then all the environmental analysis that I mentioned before takes place. So we are preparing the design report and the environmental assessment, draft design report, and we are getting ready to release it for public review and comment. There will be 45 days review comment period of the document with increases from 30 days. There will be 2 public hearings. So once we get to the end of the public review comment period, then we gather all the comments that we receive, and then we prepare the final design report and the environmental determination. So before I'll go into the options for the Cross Bronx Expressway, just quickly, I'll talk again about this missing connection between southbound Bronx River Parkway and westbound Cross Bronx Expressway. What we are proposing, and still part of the project, is to construct this direct connection between these 2 highways, and with that we are able to eliminate all the local traffic that it's designated for the expressway to stay on the expressway from Parkway to Cross Bronx Expressway, rather than using the local roads that you see here, either blue line or purple line, which both are local roads. So this is still part of the project. So now let's go into the alternatives that are being studied. It's part of the EA. As everyone knows, we had an option with traffic diversion structure, and that option had 4 sub-options on how the traffic diversion structure would be used at the end of construction, either with 4 lanes of traffic, 2 lanes of traffic, pedestrian and bicyclists, or just entirely being removed. All those had been dismissed now from the consideration based on all the coordination that we had with the public and the input that we received. So no traffic diversion structure is being considered at this time as part of the project. Now, the build alternative that it's still being evaluated and continues to be part of the project is the build alternative that would replace the bridges in stages without traffic diversion structure. And that would be either with a shared use path along the Cross Bronx Expressway or without the shared use path. And for the alternative that has a shared use path along the Cross Bronx Expressway, we also consider it's a potential connection to Greenway. So again, this traffic diversion structure has been dismissed from consideration. So now I'll go through some renderings of the build alternative, replacement of Cross Bronx Expressway with and without the shared use path. Here, this you've seen before. So this is a view from Bronx River houses looking west toward Boston Road. This would have been the view with option 1A, which now is dismissed, no more is being considered. Option 1B, the same, dismissed, no more considered. Option 1C, dismissed. So all the option 1 traffic diversion structure has been dismissed now from consideration. So now the build alternative with the shared use path along the Cross Bronx Expressway, it's shown here. The shared use path is shown here in this orange, brownish color. That would connect to Bronx River Avenue, to West Farms Road, and to Boston Road. So this alternative, again, no traffic diversion structure, only stage construction. We estimate about 6 years of construction for this option, but as I mentioned, we're also considering a potential connection to existing greenway from the shared use path that would be built along Cross Bronx Express on the south side. So here's a view of that this build alternative with a shared use path from the same location, from Bronx River Houses. As you can see, this is Cross Bronx Expressway, old new structure, as well as the shared use path along the Cross Bronx Expressway. Once it gets close to Bronx River Avenue, then it has to veer off. We have to provide ADA compliance ramp, so this will be fully accessible, this shared use path for pedestrian and bicyclists. We also, as part of the project, what we are proposing is to include a signalized intersection with pedestrian crossing in front, on Bronx River Avenue, in front of Bronx River Houses. If you know the area, and I assume you do, there is no safe crossing at this location, so we would introduce this pedestrian crossings with, which will be signalized, and that will have with safe connection to the buses and subways. Same view about the same area, but this is an, I would say like a bird's eye view, but also from an area close to Bronx River Houses. What we have here, it's a rendering with that shared use path along Cross Bronx Expressway. This is more like a user view, someone that would use this structure. Will have dedicated paths for pedestrian and bicyclists. They will be separated. Bicyclists from the pedestrians, where we are considering also a visual screening of the Cross Bronx Expressway with some solid fence. Also, what we're proposing is emergency call boxes with the security cameras, obviously lighting for the pedestrians. What we're also considering is some building seating for anyone that would like to sit. So this shared use path would provide also an overlook over the river and the park. And again, it could be a potential connection to Bronx River Greenway. And here we have a rendering of a view from Boston Road. It's an aerial view with reconstructed bridges and a shared use path along Cross Bronx Expressway. This shared use path on the western end will touch down at East 176 and connect with Boston Road, or it could touch down at West Rams Road. So now the build alternative without the shared use path, we have here an aerial view, just the bridges that would be reconstructed, but no shared use path. The same thing, stage construction, no traffic diversion structure, and this would have about same construction duration. And here's a view from same view from Bronx River Houses with just the Cross Bronx Expressway reconstructed, but no shared use path. Regardless, we're still considering to include the signalized crossing for the pedestrians on the Bronx River Avenue. Same view as before, aerial view from the same area near Bronx River Houses. Again, just reconstructed Cross Bronx Expressway, pedestrian crossing on Bronx River Avenue, but no shared use path. And here's the view from Bronx River Avenue, aerial view with no shared use path on this build alternative. Now, I mentioned before that potential connection to Greenway, that it's also being considered. So here we have an aerial view of how that connection would look like. So we will connect from the shared use path along Cross Bronx Expressway to existing Greenway. The same thing, we'll have dedicated paths for pedestrian and bicyclists, built-in seating, emergency call boxes and security cameras, lighting, and also as part of the project, we're looking to enhance the river banks within the project limits. Here is a map of the bicycle paths around the project area, and what it's shown here with the solid blue, these are the existing bike paths As you see, there's some missing links. With the build alternative with the shared use path, we would provide a shared use path for pedestrians and would be able to connect Boston Road to Rosedale Avenue, and also would propose to extend that to Noble Playground. Beside this, we are also looking into the feasibility of including some of the missing links, either on 177, on Bronx River Avenue, West Farms, as part of the project. And for that, we are coordinating with City DOT. We've been coordinating with them. So we're looking into the feasibility of including these missing links also as part of the project. Another enhancement that is being considered as part of the project, it's in the area between Sheridan Boulevard and West Tremont Avenue. That's east of the river, just across from Drew Gardens. Currently, there is a state DOT staging area there, and we are looking to eliminate that staging area and enhance this area with some vegetation, maybe some seating. So we're working currently, and we've been working for a couple of months with the Department of Parks to determine what type of enhancements would be best for this location, and also to transfer the property from State DOT to Parks Department, just to make it available for the community. In terms of schedule, as I mentioned, EA started in September of last year. We are anticipating to release the draft EA for public comments this fall. We are getting close to that. As I mentioned, we'll have 2 public hearings, one during the week in the evening and one weekends. Once the comment period finished, as I mentioned, we would finish the final EA, and we're anticipating to publish the final EA and the findings document early of next year, with construction to start late in the year and to end in 2032. Now, in terms of upcoming engagement, as I mentioned, we'll have 2 public hearings. Another meeting that we've been discussing with the community boards and with the organizations, once the draft report is being issued for the public review and comments, we would organize a meeting with all the organizations and community boards, CB 3, 6, and 9 specifically, to just go over the document and help in the community in reviewing that document. Just discuss the document, where certain items can be found and how it's organized and things like that. And on the same time, we're also participating in any public events that, as we become aware of them, we are participating with the table to, disseminate information about the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mary. Are there any questions? Raphael? Can you take the microphone, please?
Thank you, Mary, for the presentation and for all the interface with Board 6. I think initial, feedback that I'm expecting to happen when the EA rolls out is that, if you look at kind of any of the maps that you've shown, the already existing connections on either side of the Bronx River are East 177th Street and East 174th Street. The East 174th Street bridge is in really bad shape. The ramps coming up and down to West Farms Road are in really bad shape, and East 177th Street is a very difficult street to get across to Noble Playground. It's just not very well designed you have to actually just run across the highway to get east to west on the north side of the Cross Bronx. The problem is that the environmental assessment excludes both East 177th Street and East 174th Street. The area that DOT is studying is very narrow and not covering the actual east to west connections that people in the neighborhood use. And so I think the feedback that you've already gotten and will continue to get is that you're studying the wrong area. And I don't know if this is something that we can resolve, because obviously the EA is a big mammoth thing that rolls along very slowly, and it's kind of hard to go back and undo once it's been started. But the EA is now looking at building connections in areas where people in the neighborhood don't walk through. And I am very concerned that building a ramp up to walk along the side of a highway is just not going to be appealing to people in the neighborhood, and it would be not a good use of $150 million federal dollars. And that really, if we want to use this money to connect the neighborhoods on either sides of the Bronx River, we should look at where people are already walking, which is the 174 bridge and 177th, and that the EA is not going to look at this area. So you will continue to get this feedback from the community groups. I don't know how that's going to adjust the process that's already moving forward, but that's just kind of what I expect the feedback is going to be. Thanks.
Thank you, Rafael. Yes, just to mention, as you aware and everyone is aware, 177, 174, all those are local roads. They don't fall under state DOT jurisdiction. They fall under city DOT jurisdiction. You know, the project purpose is to address these really aging five structures. 174th Street City DOT already has a contract to replace that bridge. I'm not sure about the schedule, but I know they have it on their program. Nonetheless, yes, we welcome any comments, and we can, as I mentioned, we can include any bike connection as much as we can as part of this project.
Raphael, does the 174th Street contract for rehab with city DOT make your comments any different?
You should ask Edit because it's in board 3.
Oh, sorry, Edit. Does the 174th Street reconstruction help the situation?
It should help it somewhat, but like he said, I think we should be more concerned about, most people use, there's a lot of uses of the 174th Street Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But by having this new setup, I don't know how it would really affect people.
Okay, so that's something.
Also, I mean, the 174, to get down to the West Farms Road, it's 2 levels. To get down to the lower level, you're taking stairs, since there is no bike connection. To build a bike connection would require a big ramp coming off the 174 bridge, either into the park or around the side, and that's not in the study area, so the state can't consider that as an option.
The 174th Street project does not include bike access that the city's doing.
I don't see how it could, because it's staircase.
Okay.
You know, spiral staircase.
Okay. Any other? Beverly, sure.
Yeah, Community Board 4. My question is this. I know that is part of the trucking interstate traveling. That's part of their route from any state coming north, going south, or anybody coming south going north. So that's a lot of pollution. And I understand that you want to build this next on the side of that, but you have to take in consideration of idle trucks and that heavy traffic. And also, you did a survey of the Bronx residents that use the Cross Bronx at peak areas, because as a Bronx resident, I know we avoid it. So I think that should be also under the consideration of who's using it at the peak area and the type of transportation that is coming from state to state and not so much residents. I understand we need to accommodate the residents, but we must be considerate of what we're exposing them to.
Thank you, Beverly.
Yes, so I think part of that was included on the race study, if I'm not wrong, the entire study of the Cross Bronx Expressway. And we also, State DOT, it's preparing to start PEL study, preliminary environmental link study, that also will look the entire Cross Bronx Expressway. So for that, we didn't start it yet, but we are in the process of getting consultant on board and start that.
Thank you, Mary. Anything else? Okay, do you want to close out?
Sure.
Take the microphone, I'm sorry, please.
Hi, Rolando Infante. I'm Public Information Officer, State DOT. I knew some of you when I wore a different hard hat, a blue one, with Con Ed. But we want to appreciate, first of all, the Borough President, and obviously all of you chairs for this opportunity. We have been talking about the Bridges project for a bit. We've been meeting with many folks. We've been out at many events in different types of weather, from a winter carnival that was like, I think would be 19 degrees, to just recently the tour of the Bronx, which was very successful. And that was, I think, 90 plus for an October day. It was very warm. The one thing that we always hear, and in many ways complimentary, is thank you for considering to bring something, give something back to the Bronx. And that's what we want to basically leave the message with. This is not to say that the shared use path is what we would want to hammer through. This is something that we're putting out to the community, and that's why we're having this public engagement process. All we want to do is to actually just give the opportunity, and I completely understand about elevations and everything else. It's about to show what's possible, because if you go through the Kosciuszko, if you go from Queens to Brooklyn, and you start seeing folks on a shared use path there, and you see the bicyclists, you see the runners, you see the walkers there, or where I lived in Whitestone, where you see the Cross Island Parkway, and you see folks, utilizing bikes and the pathways to walk alongside of it. We're trying to bring this as an organic process. So what we're trying to bring here is to bring what's possible, and if it's something that the community does not want, just like as we did with the first alternative, then clearly we would move forward. But at the end of the day, what our main concern is to obviously make sure that the safety for those who utilize the roadways, for those who live by the roadways, that basically that we can have some harmonious, way of coalescing and basically making sure that we can do what we need to do to fix our roadways, but we also maintain the community in mind. So not moving forward, we're looking forward to engaging with not only the boards 3, 6, and 9, but also with the borough president and with any other community partner, and especially our environmental partners as well, to basically move forward together. And I believe Bronx River Alliance talked about it in the coalition, spoke about being a seat at the table. Well, we're all at the table together now, so let's move forward together. So we look forward to that process. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Rolando. Okay, thank you, New York State DOT. We appreciate you being here today. Final presentation this morning is from the New York City Department of City Planning, our Bronx Borough Director, Paul Phillips, and Eric Gregory, yes, from New York City Department of City Planning on urban design. And Eric is the Director of Urban Design.
All right, while they're setting up, so good morning. It's good to see so many familiar faces. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul Phillips. I'm the Borough Director at the Bronx Office of the Department of City Planning. I spent many hours in these rooms. For many years, I was a district manager at CB4 before going back to DCP. So I'm joined today by Camila Thomas Garcia, who's in the back. She's an urban designer in the Bronx office, as well as Eric Gregory, who is DCP's chief urban designer. The Department of City Planning plans for the future of New York City, working to create thriving and dynamic neighborhoods with access to housing and jobs, resilient infrastructure, and a vibrant public realm. Our work is guided by 5 key pillars: inclusive planning, sustainability, housing access, economic opportunity, and informed decision-making. The department has an office in each of the 5 boroughs. Borough offices include planners and urban designers. We collaborate extensively with our strategic divisions, which include but not limited to zoning, population, technical review, transportation, and of course, urban design. Urban design informs the shape of buildings, streets, and public spaces in an effort to make them better places for people to live, work, and play. The Kingsbridge Armory redevelopment, the Peninsula at Spofford, and the expansion of Mill Pond Park are just a few examples of where DCP urban designers played a critical role in shaping the project. Today, my colleagues will present an overview of the principles of good urban design. These principles inform all of our work, from some of the signature projects that I spoke to earlier, to private applications for redevelopment, design of new open spaces, to neighborhood studies. The urban design lens influences projects at all scales and levels of complexity. Our hope today is that you walk away with a little better understanding of our work and how urban design influences our work across the borough. And with that, I will turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all for having us here today. It's great to be here. And it's interesting that the Cross Bronx was the first project up before us. I started at City Planning in 2011 on the Sheridan Expressway and planning to turn it into a boulevard. So it's great to see that kind of come full circle. So I'll dive right in and just give you a little bit of background. Paul did a really great job kind of setting the tone and the table, but urban designers work throughout the agency. Camila, wonderful urban designer and planner that works in the Bronx office, and we work hand in hand with our borough offices quite often. We're in the central urban design office. That's the team that I lead within strategic planning, and we're helping to support not only borough offices but larger citywide plans, which I'll talk really quickly about. So you're getting a lot of different ways that we're plugging into how city planning operates. And just to kind of talk through those things, right? We're helping to support design reviews, so helping applicant teams and their designers think through projects a little bit better. Trying to marry the goals of the development team with the goals that the city has and that we know local communities have. So really trying to find that middle ground. We support a lot of citywide initiatives. Right now, we're helping out with the industrial plan, which has town halls happening. I think the Bronx is early next month. So we're helping to support public realm efforts with that project. We do a lot of neighborhood planning, supporting borough offices, currently Long Island City and Jamaica, Midtown South and Manhattan. And we do a lot of research and tools, which is kind of what I'm focused on here today, is to talk about some shared values that we developed over time for the principles. And of course, like all good planning, good urban design is really rooted in how we're connecting with New Yorkers and talking through projects and lived experience. So urban design focuses on people and really how they are interacting with their city, right? That could be an everyday, your trip to your commute. That could be, how you're getting around to your jobs, to play, to schools, what have you, waterfronts, parks, playgrounds. And at city planning, we have a pretty important role to play, right? We have to work with our colleagues at Department of Transportation, with Parks, with Economic Development Corporation. But zoning actually informs a lot of what we can do to shape that public realm and the interaction, whether that's how the ground floors are meeting the streets, how buildings are shaped, how we're thinking about integration of entryways to sidewalks. All these things are really important. And we developed over time these values, right? So this is really what we're here to share with you today, and you'll get a copy of the presentation, and there'll be a link to the guidebook itself. But it's really just a starting point for how do we talk about collectively design in our city, and really making sure that we're bringing in as many folks as possible to that conversation, right? Because we're all city makers, because we live here. And so really that's kind of what the principles are trying to do. They're trying to describe broadly what urban design is, and the values that we need to help our city be more functionable, accessible, and livable at all scales. And this is a really extensive effort. So we had some earlier versions of the principles back in 2017. The pandemic happened and the protests, and I think a lot of us were really looking inwardly at ourselves and how do we talk about and think about planning and design work. And so we set out on a really robust engagement, even during the height of the pandemic. We met actually with each borough board to kind of pull them to surveys that we had online, really asking New Yorkers how they think about urban design in their city. And we held workshops. We talked with other city agencies, with development teams, to really think about what are some shared values that we think we can all get behind with any type of project. And so again, right, these are meant for all of us, right? And sometimes when you talk to your communications department, you're like, well, you got to focus on one, but no, this is important. We needed to make sure that we're talking about design and even the words we use, right, is important to think about how we're connecting with anybody. And so this is really meant to be for a broad swath of users. And these are the principles. I'm going to walk you through each one quickly and then kind of highlight a project here in the Bronx that we think exudes them. But you'll notice that they really are trying to touch on all different types of scales, right? From the everyday to these larger systemic challenges that we have, from social inequities or climate justice, and really everything in between. And it's really important that even no matter how big or small a project is, we ask these questions. So the first one is kind of really the everyday scene, right? So how are you getting to the goods that you need, to the services that you need, to your jobs, to school, to play? What are the things that are interacting with your everyday, and how can we make those things a little bit better? That might be enlivened, active uses on the sidewalk. It might be bike lanes. It might be the connectivity to those bike lanes. It could be about subway access. All these things that maybe we notice when they're not there, but we don't notice them when they are there. We really want to think about how we're approaching this work, right? Think about how we're thinking through with care. And this is really important, especially when we're talking about engagement and connecting to folks like in this room through projects, really thinking about how are we taking into account lived experience, how are we thinking about doing our own due diligence to understand the communities we're working in. So really practicing with care is extremely important. And then, I think a challenge is always kind of how are we dealing with change? And change can be hard, and we all take that in different ways. But really kind of trying to think about the things that we feel make our city dynamic and finding ways to blend old with new. How do we, make sure that, our colleague was up just talking about amenities that are in one part of the city. How do we make sure that those amenities are afforded to all of us? Whether that's bike access or jobs, and really thinking about how we're flexible over time. And lastly, it's a big one, right? To say, okay, well, Eric, how does this one small project really start to move the needle on a lot of the things that we care about and where we know we need to go? But if we're not asking those questions of every project, it's going to be hard for us to get there. So, everything that we try to do, we're thinking about how to make that better. We're working on a lot of neighborhood plans, especially in the waterfront. How are we thinking about how zoning regulations and waterfront spaces can be better while providing not just active and passive recreation, but the ability to handle resiliency needs and storm surge. So these are just some quick projects. Paul mentioned a couple, like Mill Pond. It's a really wonderful project that took over a former industrial area and kind of made a park out of it, and really kind of revitalizing shoreline edges here to be more resilient and creating a lot of really meaningful spaces for people, along with activities throughout. And it connects to the Bronx Children's Museum to the north and to a new park at Bronx Point to the south. The Bronx Music Hall is another great example where it was part of a larger mixed-use development, bringing a lot of housing with Bronx Commons, but was really great is thinking about street space and plazas that were created outside to really amplify the programming inside. And so this is a way to kind of take spaces that were mainly just for cars before and making them for people and really thinking about the programming at the ground floor. St. Augustine's housing development. So again, on a former church was here, and the design team was really trying to think about how to bring back and make the building feel like it's welcoming, and kind of using the landscape here to tie into the adjacent park across the street. We actually are about to put out a resource that's really meant to help faith-based organizations when they're thinking about bringing housing to their developments or campuses. That's something we want to put forth some best practices there to help guide folks that are more specific to projects. That's a way to kind of take these principles and apply them to a topic area. And Paul mentioned the Spofford redevelopment, right? To take a former detention center, juvenile detention center, and really turning it into something that's much more forward-facing with this community through a lot of mixed-use things, not just bringing housing, but thinking about incubator space and public spaces that connect to this. So it's also important to say that this is a great project because it actually allowed for city agencies to work collaboratively together. So not just kind of development teams that are local trying to push for the project, but it's really important that city agencies are also aligned and coordinating, which I think this project highlights well. So I'll just wrap up by kind of quickly walking through the elements of what are in the guidebook. And so the first chapters really kind of give you a little bit of that background, kind of how are we thinking about urban design, what is it, how do we see it playing out, what scales are we touching, and that just kind of gives you a little bit of things, some tools that we feel are helpful to kind of bring forth a dialogue. So as you're engaging with different types of projects, this is a good place to start. The second chapter is the principles themselves, which I kind of walked through. But what's great is, within each of them we have objectives, and there's some things down there, some prompts, some questions that we think might be helpful, at least just to get the brain going and thinking through a project that might be before you. And then the third chapter is really thinking about actual projects, right? We walked you through a few that were Bronx examples, but within the guidebook, there are others, and we're adding more to these. We've got 4 more that are about to be launched online. So this is something we want to continue to do, because it's one thing to say these values, but trying to find projects that connect them in real life is important. So we also welcome if you all have projects in your neighborhoods that you think are worth celebrating and putting forward. No project is perfect, but we'd love to get more examples, especially from the Bronx. And then the last chapter is really just thinking through some tools. How do we kind of connect people to other resources? How do we find ways of talking about how could you get involved in different types of projects? Maybe not just the public review process ones that go through City Planning Commission, but are there others, and how can we help point people to the right places so that their input can be plugged into projects? And so this is the guidebook, and that's our presentation. Again, this is really a starting point. It's a work in progress, and it's something we want to kind of come back to again and again. And we welcome your feedback and any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Paul. This will be sent to you by email after today's meeting, but just from what you've both talked about, this is obviously something that you should share with your board members, but in particular, the land use or housing committees that will review specific development projects and use this as a guide for when you are meeting with development teams and potential housing developers and economic development projects to guide your members on these urban design practices. Are there any questions for Etta? Okay.
I was going to ask, thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry I had to step out for a quick second. Just wanted to know, how soon can we get this to urban design?
I'll get it to you this afternoon.
We'll get it to you right away.
100%, yeah. And the QR code here, you can access the guidebook right now online if you have if you have your phone. Yeah. Yeah, and we would be happy to come and have maybe more in-depth conversations with your land use committees if that's helpful.
If not, you'll get it by email today.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to be sure because I think I may have the older version.
Yeah.
So I'll just make sure
Yeah.
Gio sends me the
no problem.
correct version from today. Are there any other questions? Ken, microphone, please.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, Paul.
Likewise.
Thank you. In the guidebook, are there linkages to the other regional planning councils, to the Port Authority? Because there are other institutions in our region that have a very significant impact on urban design. So are there linkages and allusions to the other institutions?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So in the guidebook itself, there are a list of resources in the back. It points a lot more to city references, but there are some that kind of go beyond the boundaries of the 5 boroughs. But I think it's a great point about how we're thinking about regional partners with so much of this.
Yeah, Port Authority, Army Corps.
Yeah, and we did with the Port Authority bus terminal project that was coming through public review. We had a really heavy hand working closely with them to try to make that project a little bit better for that neighborhood. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Joanna?
Joanna Brown, Community Board 3. You mentioned large projects. What are some of your smaller projects, or how do you envision smaller projects? Say something that is already existing, say like a little square park. How do you envision that? How do you work with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a good flag. You always try to figure out what are the right projects to kind of put forth. But we do work a lot with smaller spaces. I'd say that they happen. So oftentimes they might happen with bigger projects, but often we're talking about small public spaces. And there's some that city planning does have a lot of say in through zoning, right? They're privately owned public spaces. I mentioned our waterfront public spaces. And those are ones where we can put really good design controls, so make sure that there's good seating, that the pathways are well lit and also accommodating and accessible. How are we thinking about signage so that folks know that these spaces are there and for them? How are we making sure there's not a lot of fencing up and it's not locked down, which sometimes can be a challenge. And we're also working with other city agencies, right? So a lot of these parks and plaza spaces, our colleagues at Department of Transportation are usually the stewards of. But we try to work with them where projects do overlap. We worked on, helped with open restaurants and thinking through the Department of Transportation, how do they think about the regulations there as that program was going from like temporary to more permanent. And those are oftentimes smaller scale interventions. But I'd say that's why I think even if it's a small project that isn't going through city planning, right, how do we get this resource in the hands of smaller development teams? And how are they thinking about how they're designing the ground floors of their building and how it's interacting with that street?
The one thing I'll also just add to that, so we talked about scale. So just so you know, every project that comes through our office, actually across the agency, is looked at through an urban design lens. So so every project that comes through you guys has gone through us. Now, obviously, there are limitations in terms of our purview. On some of the larger projects, we're able to have a little bit more influence, but each and every project that comes through is looked at through the principles of good urban design.
Debbie?
A basic question. Does the urban design work with City Bike in terms of location of where City Bike goes, or that's something totally different? So that's important in terms of urban design, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a Department of Transportation. They are kind of the stewards working with the company that owns those and thinking about where to expand and provide access. Yeah, so we're not. Sometimes it might come up where we might be working on a project and they've got a stop already there, and so we're thinking about how the sidewalks are working and how that development might impact the functionality. And so sometimes there's some ways we can shift that working with those with DOT. Yeah.
Thank you. Leonard?
Community Board 4. I just have a question as far as your role with the other agencies. You mentioned stewardship. I mean, most of the projects fall under the primary responsibility of one of these other agencies. But then what's urban design's role? Is it just more of a suggestive role, or is it, because I like the principles that you guys have, but to be honest with you, it doesn't seem like the other agencies work off those type of principles, because when things get designed, sometimes we see in our community, they're not aligned with how the community wanted. So if you have these principles and they're great, how is it really influencing the agencies that have final say on these projects and stuff?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a really good one. And I think that's something we often struggle with ourselves, right? What do we actually have the ability to regulate? And what are the times where we're saying, could you consider, can you try this? And that's often even with city agencies. So Paul mentioned at the outset the Kingsbridge Armory. And that, I think that was it's a really good project where there were some controls that we had on that project, but there were others that like Landmarks Commission had, right? And so we had to kind of work with them and really thinking about the design of those public spaces that were going to come online because of this project. And I think that's where like, oh, you could borrow some of our standards that we use when we look at spaces like this for our privately owned public spaces, and think about that's a good way to use guidelines for how you're going to work with the development team on this open space, because they didn't. LPC doesn't really have controls for those types of areas. They have a lot of controls for the actual historical product or building. Another one is with HPD, Housing Preservation Development. We actually have a really good protocol with them. And what we were finding is that there were gaps being made whenever a project needed to go through public review, that maybe they weren't coming to us early enough to kind of work through things so that we could tee it up so that it had a smoother process through public review. So we've actually incorporated in, at the staff level, review of projects. So they'll come to us like, hey, we've got this RFP. Let's think through like what's the best way to mass this? Here's some of our goals. And so we're able to, urban designers, both in the borough office and central, able to look at that project and provide feedback early on, which then informs requests for proposals or RFPs down the line, where those things are kind of baked in. And so that's one way where it's kind of like a soft power, and it's not really regulating, aside from like making sure the zoning is good, but it's able to kind of push for these other design values through a project. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here today. So finally, are there any announcements from any boards or elected officials? If not, I just have a couple of quick announcements from the Borough President's Office on a number of our events during the month of October. Okay. The first item is being held this coming Tuesday, which is tomorrow. It's Bronx Go Purple Day at Lou Gehrig Plaza. As you know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Borough President's Office is doing 31 days of work regarding domestic violence programming. So this is being held tomorrow outside on 161st Street at Lou Gehrig Plaza, and there'll be resources, health services, and support for those who need it regarding domestic violence issues. On Saturday, this coming Saturday, October 25th, we're having our Diwali Festival of Lights celebration at 1111 Pugsley Avenue. I believe that's PS 106, with the Barati Foundation and the Borough President's Office. We invite you to participate in that event. On Tuesday, October the 28th, we're having a town hall with NYCHA at Classen Point Gardens to talk about the issues that are occurring in Classen Point. That is being held at PS 107, the PS 107 Auditorium on Seward Avenue, and that's being brought to you by the Borough President as well as the local elected officials as well. On the 29th of October is the NYCHA Community Appreciation Dinner for the leaders of NYCHA, which is being held at the Bronx Museum of the Arts, where we will invite the leadership of NYCHA to a special celebration honoring them for all of their work this past year. And then, October the 29th also, that same day at the Samuel Young American Legion Post is the kickoff to Veterans Appreciation Month, which will be in November. That is being held on Wednesday the 29th, and this will kick off the month of events that will honor our veterans during the month of November. And then finally, we'll be starting our Reso A funding information sessions for organizations that are looking to apply for capital funding through the Borough President for fiscal year 27. That will be held here at Bronx Borough Hall on Thursday, November the 13th, from 4:30 to 7:30. I will email all of these flyers directly to all of you, so we ask you to share them with your board members as well as on your social media. Any questions on those, you could also share them with me. Oh, that came in late. Okay, so also on Wednesday's a busy day. Wednesday, October 29th, at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, there is Think Pink at Bold. It's a breast cancer awareness dialogue, and this will be held on the campus of Einstein College at 1301 Morris Park Avenue. And again, I will share all of these with you. Are there any other questions? Did I miss anything? I think we're good. Okay, our next Borough Board meeting will be on Monday, November 17th, 10 a.m. right here in room 405A. Thank you all very much and have a great day.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.